Okay. Hello again, if you're out there, and test, test. Hopefully the volume's okay this time. Still. Try. I was able to. I knew I clicked my right display, and it told me how to scale the size of the screen. So now I should be able to see everything. I don't know what I did to change it, but it had other ramifications as well. So this was the right thing to do, I think, to start it over again. And now I've got a different icon there, but it also came from BP Earthwatch. In this image that he showed at one point, the real BP Earthwatch, that almost looked like there was an embryo inside of the middle of this. You can barely you can see it kind of in the green. It's got like an embryo look to it, and he's not applying. He's applying one filter to the images that he had from Soho or wherever they came from. And that gives you the same shapes and sizes of things in that image. That this one wasn't infrared like that other one. The other ones I've been posting are. So okay, so it looks like greetings Finch, Kathy, and all.
No.
So that's funny because before when I tried to do this stream, there were like 3 or 4 people there in the chat right away. I guess I caught them all at the right moment. That's okay. They'll come back if they are so inclined. I'm still trying to fix something on my screen here.
What are you doing?
Trying to fix something.
Oh, sorry. I'm reading this. Uh,
So Dead Skin Mask says hi all, and Hierophant of Osiris
Here,
says,
fun.
hey Sawyer and Kathy just got out of the hospital due to a blood infection. Glad to be back in the streams. Wow. Glad that that's working out so that you got past that. And Dead Skin Mask says technical difficulties. Yes, I guess so. Simple technical difficulties for me can be big technical difficulties. You know, it's like when you're an old fashioned guy like me, even though you have technical experience, it doesn't always translate to knowing the right thing to do. But let's see here.
I guess California passed the proposition to change the congressional maps.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they're all going to be fighting over their borders and who's living where. Crazy.
The Civil War has begun.
Yeah, it's been in progress for a while, but it's getting more and more heated up, it seems like. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so that brings us to, it's like every day there's all kinds of things to deal with, right? Whether we see them coming or not.
But what are the announcements that you have?
Oh, announcements. Oh, that's right. Thank you.
Remember, you can't hear that on the thing.
Yeah, I know. You can't hear it over there. Anyway, so there's a meeting that's scheduled.
It's not a meeting.
It's a convention center event. It's called, what is it
It's a
called?
cult convention.
Cult Convention. And it's happening in Savannah on November 8th, Georgia, here in the United States if you're from Europe and or elsewhere. And there's going to be
Check your Facebook page.
yeah, you can check my Facebook page for the details. It's from about 10 a.m. on till
No, I
9:30
think
at
it
night.
starts at noon. The meet
The
and
meet
greet
and
is at
greet starts
11.
at 10.
I thought it was 11.
Yeah, no, it's 10 because 11 to 12 is the signing of the one guest, and then 12 to 1:30 is when I'll be talking, and Kathy will be there on the premises, and
Wanodi.
and Wanodi is planning to be there, and so that's all I know right now, except for a few individuals that might also be there that um, have been to previous meetings that have been put on.
Well, this isn't a meeting.
No, it's not a meeting. Like the previous events we had in Savannah were just us. In this case, they have people from different,
There's
cults.
four.
The way they talk
There's
about
two
it.
other. There's a Jonestown guy gonna be there. The Mother Love cult. Two gals are gonna be there, and then Tom O'Neill, who wrote the book Chaos, which is claiming that Marilyn Manson, that Charles Manson was a CIA informant. That gentleman will be there.
Right. Thank you for that summary. So it'll be an interesting convention for people that want to hear more from those different individuals, and including myself. And a funny thing that happened. Should I tell them about that?
What? So.
in Kroger.
Oh yeah.
So,
I don't know if you want to get to whatever's going on there first, though, so it doesn't get backed up.
yeah, good. So let's see, hierarchy. Joseph Coates is here. Says evening, you guys. Doing a late night streams again? Question mark. That's fun. You guys have some sort of event on the 8th. Yes, it's ending up that we've been doing some later night, right? Because our schedule changed, so we're not getting up at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning to go drive, deliveries business. So. So I don't know how long this will last because what's that? Delivering people to their places of work. We would leave at 4 in the morning. I would leave sometimes at 4. Sometimes I'd leave at 5, and I'd pick up an order on the way in. The passengers. I talk about it that way. Kathy, I didn't pick up an order. Oh boy. See, life has got all kinds of challenges, doesn't it?
For a challenge. I think I need to go be by myself in a cave for however the menopause stuff is done. Hopefully that won't be too long.
Don't worry about it.
Anyway,
You're not going in any cave.
you might be changing your mind in a few weeks after all the bullshit I keep pulling over here. I'm gonna watch this lady eat chocolate.
Yeah, we got to watch people eat chocolate.
Bye.
All the different ways you can eat chocolate. Anyway, it's crazy world. Anyway, so it's last storm is here and says books and scrolls. Oh yeah, well you would get along very well with Kathy because she's all about books and scrolls, even though we don't have any scrolls. I don't know, maybe you do have a scroll.
I was thinking about putting scrolls in the library.
Uh huh. Yeah, if she can get a hold of scrolls, she would have them because she's got a library. She owns actually, I don't know how many tens of thousands of books, or maybe now it's tens of millions. No, it's not. About 10,000 or so
Maybe
books. And we have them stored in this room, and we're gonna pretty much move them into a storage facility soon. But we're planning to. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to say any more.
We have to protect ourselves from the evil ones.
Right, the evil ones. Anyway, so Deadskin Mask says, "A shame I'm so far away. I'd love to go to this event." Yeah, I wish there was a way to. I don't even know if we'll be able to stream it, uh, but we'll see what we can do in that regard. But we won't be streaming the whole thing anyway, and the other folks, I imagine maybe they'll be doing something on their websites and things. Who knows, right? So last storm, he has a lot of things to say with the icons, the emojis.
Mm.
We got coffee. We got
Don't worry about that. Unless you want to read it all out.
No.
But you're drinking coffee, so.
It reminded me to take a sip of my coffee. So, let's see. So what I wanted to talk about was I was leading up to it before, but let me make sure I'm still working here. Test, test, test. Yes, that's working. And XF is back. Oh yeah, he said hello again before that. I see that. And he's going emoji crazy too now. We got McDonald's fries there and Big Mac and all right, cool.
So that's the meal they're having.
Yeah, I guess that's the way to tell us what people are eating, right?
I'm having yogurt with strawberries and blueberry, banana, and a little bit of granola.
Right. And now I'm hungry and I want to have something. But all I have is coffee. So anyway, so, so Kathy and I, woke up this morning and well, I was going to tell about that little thing that happened. So maybe I will. But being back in Savannah, where we've had several gatherings over the years, like 3 or 4, and over the last few years, um, part of what was fun about being here was that there's a lot of open-minded people, and Savannah is known for its ghosts and everything, and so there's ghost tours and things like that, and it's a I don't know, it's always seemed like it's got some positivity. The people in it are like exploring or whatever, they're anyway. So the bottom line is that didn't know how to think about it this time, and kind of forgot about that because it seemed like when we stayed here for a while, that seemed to diminish, seemed to wear out, and this gets to a lot of different angles to the conversation actually, but um, it has to do with my title there of the next level, helping the next level creators who I think of as T and Doe and the crew, because they're the ones that are in charge, in my opinion. And so of this project on Earth, and I believe that, and it makes sense to me from my experience, from a lot of um, observations and remembrances and re-observations through listening to tapes and things. So anyway, there's a lot that goes into uh, that, in my opinion. But getting off the track, but uh, it's that the next level is. Well, let me get to the event again. Back to the event. So we came into town, and Kathy was like wanting to go to a certain Kroger to get some grocery things. And it wasn't on the way really, but we were going to be downtown for for another reason, and but I still thought, well, why? Even when I was walking into it, I was thinking, why are we coming here? Almost when we were walking into it, when we could have gone to
Well, I stayed in the car
another one.
because
Yeah,
my
Kathy stayed in the car, but anyway, but I still had kept on having that thought. But I didn't mind going there. I've been there a bunch of times in the past when we lived here in the Savannah area, and so then I walked in, and Kathy stayed in the car, and I was in the store for less than 30 seconds, headed towards where the produce is, and this person came up to me, young and you know, I mean, like probably could be teens or 20s. That would be the age group, and she said, I think it might have been, I don't know how the person identifies, but my impression was it was a female vehicle, and she said, "Are you Sawyer?" And I was like, at first I didn't really even know how to respond. I mean, I wasn't used to that at all. In fact, I don't know if that was one of the first times it happened in that way, so directly. Some people would, kind of, I don't know, you'd have different responses sometimes, but not that often, not that direct, definitely not that direct. And and I said, she said, well, I just saw you on a documentary, and your shirt, because I was wearing a shirt um, that we bought somewhere, and she recognized it, and because I think it said Heaven's something about Heaven's Gate on it, and it wasn't one that we made. So
Sucks that you have to.
yeah, it was really
Let's just
crazy.
go.
But
Like,
anyway,
just don't make a big deal out of it.
yeah, yeah, and and she said, "Wow, wow, I'm glad." She was like excited to see me there, and of course that's always kind of fun, right? So, and I was like, I didn't know what to say really, except yes, I'm here, and I didn't even bring up the fact that why I was here, but she said a few things, and I didn't even remember what they were, and that was the end of that. Okay, and she walked off, um, and I walked another 10 seconds, and another person. It was almost like it was planned. It was like it was weird. And this guy comes up to me, and he's got a beard, and he's got longish hair, and he's also probably in his 20s, and he says he says, are you Sawyer? Because I saw you, and then I saw the shirt, and I realized that was you, and I was surprised, and we talked a little bit because he said that he had just watched the Heaven's Gate, the Cult of Cults documentary like 3 times in the last few days with his friend, with his girlfriend, and and he said he's been thinking about it, and and I and he and I said, well, I'm here actually for the convention that's happening on November 8th. So, uh, that was about the end of that, and so the next morning
Today.
today we left. We woke up, and we had gone through some stuff the night before, because we're always going through stuff. There's always so many things that can be challenges, right? I'm not going to go through them all, but uh, um,
Anyway, I started playing a tape.
right. So, well, we didn't know whether it were going to work and stuff like that. That was part of our challenges, but for various reasons. And Kathy decided to play a tape, and she picked tape 50. She actually stumbled around a little bit trying to play some other ones, and you couldn't hear it hardly. And so she played tape 50, and it was very clear. And it was T and Do talking together, and with the class, and I was there for that. For over 700 of the tapes, maybe 800. But so, um, and Kathy, I need you to may help remind me of some of the aspects of it. But uh, they were talking about one of the things they were talking about was how when they get instructions from the next level, after they go through their own personal and checks and balances, kind of trying to figure out whether it's coming from the next level or if it's coming from influences of the human kingdom or through their own genetic emanations of thoughts that we all have in human vehicles. Um, so uh, that sometimes they don't bring anything up to the other person about it, but sometimes they do. Okay, and um, they felt like they had instructions to move. Now, this is right after they spent a lot of time with crew members of the craft uh, working to actually fix up a house that they liked a lot, that Tiendo liked a lot. It was up in Black Hawk.
Mm.
No, it was another one, I think up Cave Creek Canyon. Yeah, up Cave Creek Canyon. I don't know if I ever went to it because I don't think I was in the group long enough to go to that one. Although there was another one up Creek Canyon off of Denver that we did go to, uh, but I don't think that was the same one because I think they also had a location for them to be in that it was the retreat, so it wouldn't have been the same one. Anyway, and um, and they had just gone through fixing it all. Like they had a new water heater installed, I think, and
No, the water heater didn't work, so it was fixed.
it was fixed, right?
I could be wrong about that. They could
I
have
don't
had
know
a new
what
one
was fixed
installed, but
about it. I don't know, whether what
something with
part of
that
it
call.
was fixed, but yeah, that's more accurate to what.
But I don't know if that's if they replaced it or it was fixed. But I believe they said it was just fixed that day they
Yeah, it
left.
was fixed. So, uh, but it was they fixed it up so much that people that they met in that area, realtors and somebody that lived in that area that was interested in that house, didn't recognize it as the same house. Not that they changed the whole face of it, but somehow in their minds, when they walked through it or whatever, because it was put up for sale again or lease again, I guess, because when they got instructions to leave it, they didn't know why, but they felt like they had instructions from the next level to leave that craft and go back down to Amarillo, where the students were, most of the students, except for a small crew that they had with them fixing up that craft in the mountains in Colorado. And so, they were working with the loose ends of that by putting it back on the market, and they were talking about how the realtors they felt like were really um, what was the word they used to describe the realtors as not being so money hungry, maybe that's not what they said, but uh, they seemed like they were, I guess, good people in some ways. That's what the impression I got, and that um, they didn't know if the next level was actually using them to help the people there, because the people deserved that kind of a reward, and so sent. Um, it wouldn't be necessarily like an exclusive kind of thing to where the next level sent T and Do and the crew to that house to fix up that house for that reason only. But then again, it all provides lessons because everything that happens when you're in that classroom, you get a different view of when you're doing it with T and O because they're not following human reasoning for doing things. I mean, there is some human reasoning, but it's not entirely human reasoning. Like, I mean, there's reasoning that if you got if you got the option to buy this or buy that, and this costs a lot of money, and this costs not so much money, and this seems just as good, then they have all that reasoning. That still happens for everybody that's doing a task in the human kingdom. Uh, but when you've got mind from the next level in some portion, and you're looking to that mind in some way, shape, or form, that doesn't have to have any definitions in particular to it, from my understanding. Although I think it does, there, I think there does tend to have to be a sense of seeking help from whatever we might think of as God or the creators. Uh, that's the way I don't think it's just like um, it has to do with the kind of signal that people are putting out, the strength of that signal, and how much goodness there is in it that the next level can read on their computer screens, on their spacecrafts, and then respond to by helping things go into motion to give people to reward people with a kindness or opportunities or a help because the next level wants to um, give that person some evidence of their reality. Because even though they might not recognize at the moment that something good has come to them, it doesn't mean that it goes away. Because people will say, gosh, I was desperate for this and desperate for that, and I was putting it in God's hands, and I was asking for help, and then all of a sudden there was somebody that helped me because they bought this from me or they gave me this job or they, whatever it was. And all of a sudden, that ends up being a type of strength of mind that is given to somebody by having that recognition of getting that help, even though they can't prove it. Unless they can talk to somebody about it that also believes that that's possible. And it starts as a belief for sure, but it's something that has dimension to it, and it's and has more force with it. So that if somebody is encompassing more of that mind by having them on our minds more, and them is not like a facsimile of them, but even having more mind from like the space alien souls on our minds also gives that human vehicle a certain amount of uh, maybe capacity, certain, a certain amount of signal strength, let's put it that way, that they're transmitting, and whether they're talking or not, but they're thinking about things all the time, then they're transmitting that. It just goes out, and it doesn't. How far it goes, and I don't know how far it goes, but if the Scarnets pick it up because they like what it is, or they want to help in bringing somebody something they want, then that also happens in the human kingdom, and it may or may not be next level directed. So it might not be next level directed directly, because the next level can also provide humans with what they ask for if they ask for something specific, for instance, or if it's something that the next level really doesn't want to give them because it's strictly more humanness. But they know that if they do have it, they can grow potentially to recognize that that didn't satisfy them when they got that item or thing or opportunity. Yeah, I'm gonna have some of that.
I would just put it in the fridge if I
Yeah,
can find a spot
sure.
for it.
Yeah, but you don't have to. You can leave it out.
But it's
Sure, if you can find a spot for it. But I could gobble it down. I'll take a break from this talk for a minute.
I put my finger on the camera
Oh, I don't.
so people don't see noshin.
Mm. I'll just take a bite every once in a while. Thank you, Kathy. So, so Tiendo ended up leaving and going down to Amarillo. And what else were they talking about in that regard, Kathy? Do you remember anything else?
Listening to instructions, knowing what is instructions and if it is an influence. I think you already addressed that.
Yeah, like how do you tell if it's an influence or not, right? And, well, I know one of the ways that, um, well, one of the ways you know it's not from the next level is if it would have to do anything to do with, being like directly deceitful of somebody or manipulative or what, or hurting somebody in some way, shape or form, or mentally or physically, or doing destruction to something that wasn't designed to be destroyed. Like let's say we're rebuilding a house on an old site, you have to destroy something, right? In order to build something new. Yeah, the Ten Commandments is a safe idea of some of the primary things they wouldn't have you do. Um, I mean, there's ways of thinking about things that, like some people take it to extremes, I believe. Um, and it's by thinking that the human laws were all like, for instance, that if you went over the speed limit, you were deceiving the laws of the land. Being lying in a sense,
Like what else? How they're talking
finishing a task. Right, acting right away on it and not delaying. Like they said that they would um, they wouldn't go so far as to, if they got instruction to go someplace,
Well, that specific night they were tired.
they were tired, so they spent a couple of hours sleeping before they got up and left. But they didn't like think, well, maybe it's not that important that we can do it later. And they talked about how when they gave instructions for some to put some bunks in the house in Amarillo so that they could have a place to go to rest the very same day, uh,
some bugs. It's asleep.
Right. So that would have meant that the ones that were in that location, that house, what we called craft, would go to storage to get bunks that were in storage. Because we had more than we needed in that craft. And so anyway, and they didn't do it right away. And it was a Link's instruction. That's the way the Tiendo talked about themselves as links because they weren't personal. Um, they they thought of themselves as links in the chain of mind that goes to the chief of chiefs, who is thought of by them as uh, the older member of the next level that has more experience than everybody else. Yeah, I guess, but we don't understand where he came from because our brains aren't capable of it, according to Doe. I mean, for him to Doe to even say that to me is like to me evidence of Doe's very advanced mind. You know, to even think that we would know where the chief came from when the chief is the thought of as the chief of chiefs. He's the highest, most experienced, knowledgeable, wisest, member of reality that we know of. In the way that we've been taught. God in the truest sense, not all the distorted senses that even extends down to humans that rule countries being talked about as lords, and gods in like in the Egyptian times and like where the Pope is like a god in a sense to millions of people thinking that he's got a connection uh, um, that is like direct or something.
Before you might be killed for saying that.
You mean years ago? Yeah, a long time ago, right? You were questioning what the Pope said. You could be decapitated or burned at the stake if they had a reason to. They're like now with politics, right? Right. As long as as soon as they want to find something against you because you have other reasons, then they go after you for things like that.
No, I'm saying if you spoke against the church, then you were gone after. You didn't have to have any other reason.
Because other members of the church would report you?
Your neighbor would report you.
Yeah.
In the 1200s, you
Right.
weren't walking around saying the Pope is not a direct link to God. Like, you would be burned for saying shit like that.
Right, right.
Saying. Wouldn't be like, oh, we don't like him, so let's find a reason. It'd be, no. Like,
right. So we fortunately have evolved to
yeah.
be more civilized, which Doe was conscious about. And I spoke about it a little bit in one of the 1994 tapes when I think Rick Odie brought up because we were in the process of going public with public meetings for the second time over 20 years, or maybe not 20 years, but 18 years or so. But and so Rick Odie asked, well, should we think about you know uh, like announcing what we believe on the street corners, of the town? And Doe said, well, he didn't think that that would be necessary. We don't need to be that bold. And he said at this time, and because Rick Cody was also saying, do we need to be afraid of, someone else said, should we be afraid of somebody bumping us off? Because we're speaking about things that, people aren't going to necessarily agree with and might find to be adversary to them. And Doe felt like, said, no, he doesn't think that you know, that the civilization has advanced more from the times when that was a danger, more of a danger. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a danger, but I think you've got to make some pretty big waves, or just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and some wacko is around, you know. But that can happen to anybody. Um, and there is right there's a reason to be cautious, of course. And but if you're so cautious that you're not willing to, huh? You don't go outside it. You don't go outside at all, right? Because the germs will get you. Then you're just going to have limited service to the next level if you um, want to avoid everything that might be detrimental. And see, that's where a certain amount of faith comes in. And faith isn't blind. I mean, it can be. I'm not going to say that it's never blind, because the use of the word is even distorted, of course. To think because you can quote a book or believe in some savior, that all of a sudden you have faith that everything is going to be taken care of by that individual. When you still got to go out and get a job to earn the sticks to buy your food. Anyway, and everything else that happens in the human kingdom that gives you lessons. So, so that's like a blind faith that is. I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for that, and a degree of that happening. There's a lot of people I know. I've met a lot of people that are struggling, and they have a sense of God is helping them, and I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Whether it's really what they think of as God or not, I don't know how to judge that. I can judge it if they want to talk to me about it. I can kind of try to provide ways of looking at it that are, in my opinion, um, more realistic and less supernatural. But some people don't really want to tune into that, and it's not for us to try to force people into tuning into that. And in fact, it's probably even detrimental. It's it works it works the way the next level works when individuals are looking for it and they're asking questions, or they're sometimes they might be just talking about something in a certain way, and uh, it might be something that we can be completely agreeable with legitimately, even though we might choose different words, or have these other perspectives like from Tiendo and etc. But just agreeing with them in wholeheartedness, understanding, like Doe would say, that the preachers and the evangelicals, a lot of times they were saying all the right things, but they didn't recognize that there was more to say, more to think about, more to consider about all those same things. And so even by the presence of somebody that has a perspective of more things to say about something, somebody can pick that up, whether they know it or not, and all of a sudden they could be more open-minded the next time they walk into um, where a TV is playing and there's a certain documentary on there that's talking about something, and all of a sudden now they have an ear for it when before they didn't. And so that's happening, I believe, through the entire human kingdom. Humans to humans, and next level to humans, and space aliens to humans, and discarnates to humans. Because humans are the receptacles of potentially all the thoughts coming from who knows how many uh, uh, living entities. If you want, I don't call spirits, discarnates, live beings, because they don't exist. That word to be is the name that Jehovah gave to Moses when Moses asked Jehovah, um,
Excuse
who should they say is talking to them, is going to talk to them when he was on the mountain, and who should I say is going to talk to them? Because Jehovah said, go down to the people and tell them I'm going to talk to them. Okay, and Moses asked, who should I say, you are? And he said, I am. He said, I exist. I exist. I am. I am. I am. The word am in the Hebrew, whatever language that dialect that was, um, uh, meant exist. And that's because members of the next level exist. Humans don't really exist until they've evolved, their minds have evolved, their souls have evolved to be in um, a certain part of the mental band. You know, if you want to think of the AM band and the FM band and the other bands of radio signals, that is consistent with uh, kind of the elementary behaviors and ways of thinking as of new members of the next level, so that they have that interface. And so all humans can potentially be tapping into that band to some degree from the next level, right? And then, but meanwhile, the band of communication that the space aliens use, and which can be the same bands, I guess, potentially, that the discarders are on for communication with our brains and our whole systems, uh, um, they're like pushing on us. They want to get into our heads. They want to get us to do this and get us to do that, and anything but the next level bands, unless they can make that into a facsimile of the next level band by pretending to be higher beings, next level beings, by some definition of the human kingdom, like a priest, in a sense, represents themselves. A lot of priests don't think of themselves as in that way, as if they're emissaries of God, or I know because I've met quite a few while I was traveling around the country delivering Tiando's message, and even before that, and even after that, and then the second time we were traveling around delivering Tiando's message and we're meeting people in the religious communities, um, meeting people. So um, so it's like but they can, and it's nothing to do with necessarily with religion, because the same thing exists with peoples that are leaders in different corporations, science pursuits, whatever it is, finance, living in homes and fixing up things, and that develop what band of influences they're most in connected to with their daily thoughts. It really comes down to where the minds are at 24/7, which can be a lot of different things, right? But it can also be very few things, really, depending on how much we're filling up the computer with things, so that we're always thinking about something all the time, or we're never actually just listening to what the next level might have in store for us. Now, we can when we learn to listen better, which I'm not saying I'm great at this, I did feel like I could sense that I was doing it, to where I wasn't having any thoughts, but I was going through the actions that, I mean, I wasn't having any conscious thoughts that were so conscious that it required a lot of concentration. Okay? So I could be in that mode. Now that's a varying amount also, because different individuals could have more better listening mode while even engaged in different activity that requires more of them in their brains. And I mean, the way that describing brain frequencies, the way I understand it, is that when a human is driving a car, it requires more brain power than when a human is um, sitting at home and I don't know, listening to music. That doesn't require much at all, I don't think, uh, concentration. Or but like if you're driving like a jet, at I mean that too, it can be like a car, I guess. You got to be aware of a lot of things. So it takes brain power, but you can have that operating. You can be driving down the road, and I know this, and you can be thinking about something else entirely different than what's on the road, and your subconscious mind and part of your conscious mind can still be aware of what's happening in front of you. You might not remember it right away, but you might remember that you did see that sign that was back there. But you didn't realize it until you were making the last minute turn off the road. When you had no idea that that was the right turn to make because you had been thinking about something else more. And that's happened to me a bunch of times, and sometimes I missed a turn too. So you can't necessarily count on it. It's better to have more of your mind conscious on what you're doing, so that you don't make any last minute turns that could, be a traffic hazard. But I'm just trying to get to my own experience with some of this, because it is. And so so if we're occupying our mind with what Doe is thinking right now, and what uh, you know, if we want to include T in that in our minds, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But Doe's our older member, for those that see him that way, and for even somebody that's curious in that direction, they wouldn't be staying curious in that direction if they weren't tapping into some part of that mind. Now that doesn't guarantee anything. Having being tapped into some degree into that mind, because they're not going to just give you all this stuff, and you're going to not have realizations of this and that and enlightenments and all kinds of things. You will, in degrees, and tiny degrees that can be very big for us when they happen. And yet, if you were going to describe to somebody else, you wouldn't be able to necessarily describe what was so big about it, because it wouldn't be measured the same by somebody that didn't experience it. Unless they had an equivalent kind of experience. And then they might say, yeah, I've had some times in my life to where I felt like, wow, that makes sense to me, or that's the direction to go in, or, and it felt like it was coming from something above me or beyond me. And that can be from a space alien mind. But so that's where it comes into judging what direction it's leading you. And sometimes you might take a step in that direction to try to find out better, and that would be the same thing that T and Do would do. Uh, and so let's say they started to plan to leave that craft where they had just fixed it up, and now they had instructions to go back down to Amarillo where the class was and live in that house for a period of time. um, uh, on the way down, they would still be thinking about whether this was the right thing to do and how to do it, and if there was something else to do as well. They would be going through all these things in their minds, and when they would have ideas about it, they would express it to each other. So they had to check partner relationship. That was on purpose. The next level provided two individuals because of how much static there is in this atmosphere. We don't necessarily recognize it, but there's a huge amount of frequencies going around that influence us potentially, depending on our own genetic makeup and our societal upbringing and uh, uh, and to the degree that we have desired to um, reach for the highest we can be in some way, or uh, uh, what's the most meaningful existence, and what purpose do we potentially have, and that can be put on the back burner, and that can be on our conscious mind for our whole lives, and we might be achieving little parts of it, and those little parts, the next level may look at those little parts and say, that was pretty good considering what you were up against. So here I'm going to take that soul and I'm going to save them for a future opportunity to be in school in the human kingdom, to where you can eventually, they don't even have to say eventually, because that makes it sound like it's always got to be like way down the road, so that doing nothing is okay. When members of the next level, if we're tapping into their minds, they don't want to do nothing. They like activity. That was another thing they talked about in tape 50.
That's right. Yeah.
They really like activity, doing things, and uh, and doing them as quickly as possible. You know why? Because then they could be ready to be doing something else that the next level gives them to do. But what happens in the human kingdom is, let's say you get something to do and you're doing it, and there's something that's happening that is very, very pleasing to continue. And so you might not be so open to thinking about asking them for the next step that is going to change something, because we can be fearful that what the next level is going to give us is going to take away something that we really need and we don't want to not have a part of. And that fearfulness is understandable because we're in human vehicles. Human vehicles really don't like change that much. I mean, some changes, sure. The sensory systems like different variety of things. But um, but um, but the mind likes to have different things. Well, I mean, if you have a quest for learning about new things and philosophies and things, sure, that's all something. But that can be also be a trap. In other words, trap in the context that you might not be open to what's even beyond that. That you're not going to really see written down with current ways of thinking in place of how the human kingdom has evolved into things. So that the previous views that were given, 100 years ago, 200 years ago of outer space and people living in outer space and things like that, or even 50 years ago, like in Star Trek. I don't know if that was that long ago, because time really has been going by, right? But but I don't know if what you can see the previous thinking in the past. A lot of it's been updated, to where nowadays, uh, I don't know, there's how many people would think that it's not possible that there's people living on other planets. I don't know if anybody is not been faced with that enough to where if they're blocking it out as a possibility, then they're just not tuning into that part of the next level mind because that's a reality. I don't have any question that that's a reality. But again, I'm crazy. But I'm crazy in a next level way, I hope, only. And that means that I'm, you know, uh, but you could be crazy in a next level way, and you could be tuned into the space alien souls. And but but there's signs of what they would say and do that show the truth uh, to us when we examine them. If we're examining them, because T and Do, when they have a thought about doing something, they're examining it from their perspective of the behaviors and ways and ideas and concepts and whatever else you want to think about it as of their experience in the next level that is provided to them by their souls. Because the souls are uh, the body that is on a spacecraft that can be in close range of the human vehicles that are walking around for all of us. I was thinking about this earlier today about how one of the things that T and Do both said that no, I think T said that she remembered the briefing, and this was before they came, before their souls came and they crashed any spacecrafts, and before that time. Okay, I don't know how far before that time, but the way that I remember them talking about it, I don't know if this is on the tape. Do you remember this from a tape with T and Do both in it? To where they were talking about that, and they were in this big room, and they knew that it was on some kind of a spacecraft, and so it wasn't parked on Earth the way I understood it. It was somewhere in the deep space regions, and there were a number of individuals there that had next level grown physical bodies. In other words, grown in a next level laboratory that has a physicality to it that's not the same as a flesh human physicality, but it is dense to where a human, if they touched it, would feel something. That's the best way I can try to describe it. Um, and like there was an example of somebody that said that they punched, I forgot the guy's name. I almost had it on the tip of my tongue. They had a contact, and the guy punched a member of that looked like a space alien in the head, in the face, and he said it felt like squishy. And Tiendo thought that was kind of funny, but they didn't say whether that they thought that was a next level member or not. But the context of it, I'm just putting that little story together with the fact that they did say that the flesh was a different quality than human flesh. Um, anyway, so the individuals in this meeting were wow. I never thought of that in terms of the meeting that was the script that they wrote that was called the meeting. Anyway, this meeting didn't have. I don't know if it was depicted in that movie script because I'm not sure when T had that remembrance. Um, but in that meeting, there were individuals with bodies, and there were, I think, more. My impression was there were more individuals there that didn't have bodies, that were around the outside and the back of the room. And I was thinking today, well, those must be the souls that Junodi wrote about that were all back, including their souls. Or maybe not all of them, you know. Maybe they had another area where they had souls that were ready for this time period now. But in either case, they would be souls that the next level had in their keeping, in their environment. But it made me think that why would the souls without vehicles that were planning to come back and take over human vehicles in order to learn lessons from human experiences in relationship to their older member taking a human vehicle and meeting them and all, or being around their information, which we have the opportunity for now, why why would those souls need to be in the briefing before that? Wouldn't they be like on ice somewhere and sitting? And I just had this. I was asking this question just like 3 days ago, 4 days ago, during a live stream, of whether the souls could actually be saved on ice, actually could be also still learning something, still having some functions, still able to hear what the older members were saying to them, or maybe they have some observational opportunities of next level labs. Um, so they potentially can be maybe absorbing things in a kind of osmosis kind of way, the way that Tiendo said that could happen with by humans listening to their audio tapes over and over again. They could get some osmosis growth, you know, that people aren't going to necessarily know how to identify as coming from Tiendo, because it could be just being kinder to somebody. It could be more on the lines of what Jesus was teaching, as when the older members aren't here, then the golden rule is in effect pertaining to the next level development, which is doing to others as you'd have them do to you. Or if you wouldn't treat somebody that, if you don't want to be treated that way, then you don't want to treat somebody else that way. It's a pretty good guideline, right? And it works. I believe it works. I think. Anyway, but even that can be made into something that uh, kind of puts limitations on it. Of thinking that that's all there is to do, because the first commandment, Jesus gave two commandments. He said the first one was to love your Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your strength, and all your soul. And it's all differentiated. The mind being uh, the con the content of your focus of drawing a next level mind would be filling the soul with only next level mind. And the soul already has mind associated with it that's in any incarnation of the older members that those souls are present for, they're trying to get into a human vehicle more and more. And we don't know if they're just hovering above human vehicles, or if they're in a spacecraft that's in close enough proximity at different times, when other times maybe they're a little further away. And maybe that distance sometimes has us feel like we're floundering and we don't know what this is, and we lose consciousness of next level reality, to degrees, so we can be like floundering and thinking, gosh, I don't know what's going on. My mind is falling apart. Are we worth nothing? Or I've I go through that at times. I believe Kathy goes through it at times, and yet And yet, by that struggle, which is a desperation, I mean, if it grows into a desperation, then to me it means that there's thirst happening with that individual. And that could be desperation to conquer an addiction. That could be desperation to not be overcome by someone else's bad behavior. And that can be a desperation to, rise above all, all the terrible things that can be happening in the world that we don't have any opportunity to do anything about except sending positive thoughts to those that are going through it. And maybe if we can have a facility to help people in some way, then yeah, sure, do it. I think that's a good thing, of course. But and there are people that do that, I know. And the next level are the judge of whether um, they are souls that the next level wants to save for future opportunity. Because there's see, the next level doesn't have a guideline that says if you give $1,000 when you have $1,000,000, is that a decent enough ratio of helping somebody else? And what are you helping them with? You know, uh, we don't know how to judge what the next level would judge as somebody else giving. Because we don't know what people have to deal with. Because regardless of how much money you have, you still deal with stuff. I heard um, Elon Musk say to Joe Rogan, a little tiny clip. Uh, he said that if I ever become aware of a reality to the space aliens, I want to come on Joe Rogan and talk about it with you for the first time or something like that. And then Elon said something about um, I think I forgot what that was, but it was something about some technology. Oh, I forget about it, so I'm not going to go any further than that. But uh, um, oh, never mind now. Let me go to the chat. I haven't been there in a long time. I guess there's nothing new in the chat, so I'll keep on
Is
going.
you have live chat on
Yes, I do.
and it scrolled down all the way?
Yeah. Well, let's see if I'm still ticking away over here. There have been times where I talked for 20 minutes or longer, and it wasn't ticking anymore. The video's not changing. Wow, the video's not changing. It's stuck.
Hmm.
It says 78 minutes and there's 3 people watching. I think actually we're done.
What do you mean? It's been stopped?
Yeah, I think it is.
Well, I can check that. You don't need to make a comment in the thing, baby. I can just check
Okay.
it.
All right. Well, now it just went up to 4 people watching.
Yeah, you're not done. You're still on.
Really? Oh, there it goes. RVW says, am I too late to catch a ride on the next big comet? 3G G3 Atlas?
We're all too late.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not the one that does in charge of that. I just know what the task is now, and that is if we believe in T and Do as our older members, then we're going to want to take advantage of the opportunity to share their information with others. That's the task they gave all the souls who remained after they were gone, which you can read about in the Heaven's Gate book and is on the away team document, away team from deep space, surfaces before departure. That document in the Heaven's Gate book on the Heaven's Gate website, you can find that, and that book can be downloaded in a zip file. So it's a text format uh, of the book. So um, I'll say that much. Um, wow.
What? Why don't if don't get distracted
Sorry.
by? Why don't you end the stream if you're done?
I'm not done.
Right then.
Well, maybe I am. So, so I don't know. Maybe I am done, but yeah, I talked about Audio 50, and I've talked about before Audio 300. I don't know if there's anything more about that one to really go through. Because just for reference for anybody that's just come into this, the Audio 300 um, was recorded in 1988 in February. Um, but Audio 50, I forgot what the date of that was. I didn't write it down.
We didn't.
Did you notice it? No. But it was pretty close to 1982 or 83. 83 at the latest, I would estimate. But uh, one of the things I liked about 50, I mean, I like all the tapes. I really can't say that there's any that I don't like. But in tape 50, we haven't listened to, because Kathy and I usually listen together, even though Kathy listens to tape sometimes when I'm not here, but if I'm working or something. But um, most of the time we listen to them together, and we hadn't heard a tape that had both T and Doe on it for a while. So it was uh, fun, and nice, enjoyable, and Doe wouldn't find fault with this to hear T talking, and then also to hear Doe talking while T was sitting right next to him after he'd been with T for many years doing this task. Because they started in 1972 when they met. But that video is working again. I guess it caught up, or it's way behind. XF says we should have a Zoom talk one of these nights when you have time. I do those with numbers of people. No time to meet people for in person sessions. Just an idea. That's interesting. I might be open to that sometime. Uh, XF. Of course, here I don't have to, you know, I can just say what I want. I mean, it's not like I have a lot of time, so I do like kind of maximizing things um, by doing these streams. I might look into, I don't know if there's some way of bringing in a screen, because I've wanted to do this before, to where I got uh, more interface with other people while I was doing this stream. And like to have a window on the screen like other people do, where they put their Zoom equivalent connection with. But I don't think I can do it with the free version of OBS. But I might be wrong about that. And I don't want to spend any money on more software for it. Or you can do group streams with several guests. Hmm. RVW says, I wish you were my grandpa. Gosh, you probably have awesome stories. I have some stories, but I don't know if they'll be awesome to you. They might not be that awesome. But, there are plenty of, they're just not necessarily awesome in a human way. I'm not saying that you wouldn't like them in next level ways, because I certainly like to hear things from T and Do when they talked about their experiences. I'm not saying I'm a replacement or a representative of Do or T. I'm trying to be a decent instrument of their mind, mainly with information, because you know um, I'm trying to stick to what they taught and not try to bring in my own mind to that, even though I end up doing it. And sometimes I don't think it's a bad thing, and other times I think it is kind of a distraction that's not of any value. And I usually, when I realize that, I usually try to say something about it so that people don't think I'm pretending to know something I don't. Right, I remember what you're saying about XF with Dio Nerd. Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, that's right. We did something on Apple, I think. He set us up, him and I. I don't remember what you were doing with him. So XF says, I'm just a representative of myself as a believer in T&O Left Behind. I tell people the best source is their information. Yep, I agree with that. So I guess maybe I don't have anything else to say. Oh yeah, I did have this one part to talk about because in 1988, which you'll hear this in tape 300, one of the things Doe is talking about is what the students were going to say to people that might come to their video showing event, or I'll load these images that they were putting on a screen in some venue of some sort. Um, if they, let's say they bring up, weren't you part of the UFO cult in 1975? That we're talking about those people who went off with those two that got on board or said they were going to get on a spacecraft and leave. And what if they say that, what were you one of them? What are you going to say? And the students were responding, Dan Sodi and at one point I couldn't hear what the students were saying. Like those said, what do you want them to think, that you got smart and left the group? But then that would put the group in a bad light, as that's what it would say to him, to Doe. So you wouldn't want to put the group in a bad light. But see, part of this has to do with keeping security, so that if somebody is uh, somebody that could cause you interference in your life, like for instance, be associated with a group that were looking to what the media determined were cults, with the idea of finding them in order to try to extract somebody that a loved one knew was in that group at some point, which was the case with T and O's group, that we were sought after by different people that we know for facts is true. And I can tell a lot of evidence of that, but I'm not going to spend the time on that. But so Doe was concerned about having that disruption, because what somebody is trying to um, graduate out of the human kingdom, when they feel like they are hooked into uh, the greatest information that and feelings and understanding and concept of and everything that they had ever experienced, and they're in that vein, and they're adults, and there's no reason to have any fear about them, because you know but of course, when somebody doesn't know, they're going to be prone to having fears about it. But if those individuals actually project to the highest source, into the heavens, with wanting help with their loved one having joined with some group, and ask how to, if they're okay, how can they handle it? How can they think about it? Is there something they can do to help the situation? I think the next level will give them some sense of, when it comes down to the T and O's group, some sense of calm with that. Now, that might mean that T and O, in the case when it was happening while they were in vehicles, might get instruction to go someplace, or say something, or reach out to somebody that might have a connection with people that are having strain. And the way that happened with T and O's group, that I was in and still feel like I'm a part of in some way, to some tiny degree, but is that they learned, because we were making phone calls after the first. There were some phone calls made before the first 10 years that I made my first phone call to those that were in my family, my mother and father, and basically my sister and brother. But so there were others that had been in touch with certain family members during that 10-year time period, even stemming from as early as 1975. And I don't know how often they were in contact with different people. But because of that, Tiendo learned that there was a network that had formed surrounding uh, Alex Odie's vehicle's mother. And that individual was starting to communicate with other members of the group that were still known to be in the group, even though that individual, Nancy, didn't know um, from the group directly where they were, but they had ideas from dropouts of where they were at this time or that time. Uh, that when dropouts got in touch with somebody that got in touch with somebody or however it happened, because sometimes that did happen to where they found out about what Nancy was organizing, and um, and so they had, uh, I think they had the Cult Awareness Network notified, and so when Tiendo found out about it and that they were having all these conversations between family members of members that were still in the group, uh, that's approximately when uh, Tiendo felt like they got instructions from the next level to send us back on a visit as a task. And the task was to relieve the anxiety of those members about us, the anxiety they had about us. And so most all of us, everybody didn't have to do the task, especially if there was somebody that didn't have anybody to communicate with, go back to. I think that might have happened with Sam. Already might have had somebody in her family that she visited with that first time, but she was a pretty old. She was an older vehicle at the time, so so when they left, she was probably in her 70s. Maybe not, but anyway. So so we flew back. I flew back by myself, and I went to New York, Long Island, where um, I had spent my childhood years um, into the teens, the early teens. No, the late teens. I'm sorry. Anyway, and visited with family members. Okay, and we stayed the weekend. We left on a Friday, and we returned on a Sunday flight back to where we started from. And it was an opportunity that, being away from the group, I could decide to do whatever I wanted. I could have just stayed there, and I wouldn't have been, uh, I would have had support from my family to do that. I'm sure they would have given me a place to stay and all that. I didn't think about that at all when I went on that visit. To me, I was feeling like I wanted to share with them the great value that I found in being with T and O, which is honestly the way I felt. And they felt it from me, and it was a great visit. So anyway, I forgot how I got into the visits, but I guess I'm talking about how the next level didn't want interference because, like, an example of the way that the interference would work is if, when you're in a classroom, you've got certain things you've got to focus on in that classroom. Like if it's a human classroom, then you've got papers you got to write, you got to prepare for tests, you got to. Now we didn't have tests, okay? We didn't write papers. Occasionally they would have Tindo would have us write something to express ourselves pertaining to a lesson, so that they could see what we were thinking about in terms of our own weaknesses to conquer, and that were part of building strength of mind. Because when you conquer a weakness, you're changing your behavior in ways, and you're trying to keep that on the top of your mind more, so that you look for the signals of where something could uh, steal your mind from you. Cause you significant emotional difficulties, and so the challenge is to recognize the signs of that and stop them and get rid of them and put up the blank cue cards as if there was no signs, nothing to say, nothing to think about it, and then putting your mind on something else so that you don't just stay around and just think about the same thoughts again, expecting that influence, that discarnate, or whatever it was, to go away. And actually, that's the other part of it, telling it to get the hell away, treating it as if it's a person that's actually trying to get you in a bad state of mind because they get off on creating havoc with you and causing you, emotional stress or whatever it is. And see, it's not easy because the influences always come at us in a slightly different way and catch us by surprise. And but, uh, but, uh, but the surprise part isn't necessarily the subject matter that might be lingering, that might be being talked about, but it's it's some emotional connection to that uh, that can be completely justified, and nothing bad about really, but something that creates a vibration that uh, uh, is detrimental to continue with. So then benefits by getting rid of. And people do this in the world all the time. We're in the world now, and I think, I know Kathy and I go through it all the time to where, you say something you don't mean, or you're going down a road of thinking and you can't seem to get it out of your head. And you don't even want to in some ways, like you don't even have the strength of mind to say, get the hell out of here, because you don't have that objectiveness, because you're just thinking that there might be truth to the things you're hearing, might be talking about you, and how bad you are in this regard and that regard. And that's not next level. That's not next level. Those are influences. They're very disturbed influences. They were either that way when they were living, or they're that way on purpose because they've got some energy from a space alien soul that's directing them to you, or in some way projecting to you vibrations, sound waves, radio waves, uh, that trigger things in our minds because of our own programming, whatever we have about ourselves and about others. Which can be, can go back into the subconscious, to stimulate certain, like what's his name? We talk in that song, "Digging in the Dirt."
Peter
Peter
Gabriel.
Gabriel, find the places we got hurt. There's not there is potential value to some of that. I know, but I know it's also something that can be, uh, by remembering over and over again, it can drag us back into it. So there might be a value to digging in the dirt at some points to get at things that might be subconscious, that, or conscious, that in some way that we're having pain and difficulty from. Uh, but you can't. It is possible to just cut it off. Doesn't mean it's easy. I say just cut it off. Doesn't mean it's easy. But don't recognize that T could do that. Like but it seems like what she did by leaving is that either the strength of mind that it takes to cut it off, what was coming at T was so base and disturbing in its vibration and so hateful and so you know literally hating of her, um, that the vehicle only could stand that for a certain amount of time, and that she wasn't feeling like she had the instruction to block it to where it wouldn't take a toll on her vehicle as much. Because just being in the human kingdom, there's a certain toll on the vehicle. So, um, uh, but Doe realized after T left that over the years that T was saying that I'm here to get you started and then I'm going back, which Doe didn't understand very well because he told us about it several times. We heard about it from Doe. I don't know if it's on the tapes or I think it is on the Beyond Human tape, #1 maybe. And maybe it's in the 88 update. And maybe in a 1994 tape, he might have also brought it up for the new people that were joining at that time. Um, but you would think, what is she going? What is T going to go back to? Her family? He couldn't imagine that. Her human family, because he couldn't imagine that after being with T for even I don't know what period of time they were together at that point when he was having that thought, but it might have been the first year or so. But that wasn't because of thinking he couldn't compute what T was meant by going back to. But he realized that she was talking about going back to the next level. Because that's what was in that vehicle at that time was T. Enough of T's mind, enough of T's soul to where that vehicle wasn't giving any back talk to T about who that T knew was occupying that vehicle. And the space aliens, even if they did input things into T's mind, because in the human kingdom we can't stop what's thrown at us. The next level can regulate some of what's thrown at us, and they will if we ask for help in that way. If we don't know how to ask for help except for saying, next level can just help me with this, you know, they can hear that and they can give you help and they're going to give it on their time frame and because they know that you can receive a certain amount of that help when asking, and you will. And it's something to keep on doing. And uh, it can get easier and easier, but you can also get tripped up again. But it can still get back on the wagon in that regard. And I certainly could learn to do that a lot better. Anyway, but I talked about the briefing a little bit. I know I went off on different things about it, uh, associated thoughts that I've had over time, and it's almost like those thoughts were all just given to me. I don't know, I could be wrong, but the way that I was making connections, because I was thinking about things in a different way than I ever thought about them before. I mean, a little keyword like the word soul had me think in terms of a soul being on a next level spacecraft during the briefing and whether that soul could live again. It's still living, it's still absorbing information. It's still but I know one thing that's not happening to that soul at that moment, if they're on a spacecraft, on ice so to speak, they're not in the next level vehicle. But they're in a spacecraft that there are other next level members potentially in. If they're in that kind of a circumstance observing, I know one thing that's not happening is that soul isn't experiencing the growth of its muscle, because that's the way Tiendo used the word muscle to talk about what we were strengthening while we were in vehicles. We were exercising our next level muscle. It's like an organ in a sense that is with a soul that gets built stronger and stronger by being in the human environment, having a human vehicle, and going through lessons and getting rid of the negativity, getting rid of the scarness that would be down on you or down on other people. Unless, even if you're down on somebody else, what I would think that we would be striving to be is down on the influences that are using that person's mouth. Down on and hoping that that individual can grow to recognize that they were letting something out of their mouth that was base and wrong or hurtful to somebody that was something to not keep on doing. But it takes lessons though in life. But souls that are surrounding or trying to interface with different human vehicles have the experience, so they can have a sense that there is something to improve upon in that regard, even when they're doing it. And if they come back to somebody and they apologize, and if we go to apologize to somebody, we're demonstrating that we regained some of that higher mind. Because if we don't have some of that higher mind, then we're not going to apologize to somebody because we're going to think we're justified in what we said or did. I'm not saying this is the only ways of thinking about these things. I know that they're not, actually. Because I know if Doe was saying these things, he'd be bringing uh, more mind to the subject. But then again, if somebody is hearing me talk and they're thinking about T and Doe, then they're also potentially tapping into that thinking about T and Doe is like asking them to uh, to give them a sense whether um, what's coming out of Sawyer's mouth makes sense or not, or uh, seems like something he's just making up or not. And so in that way, you know, we can all be check partners for one another. And I've asked for people to bring up to me things if they hear me saying something, but they're going to have to find out what T and Doe are saying before they're going to be able to uh, you know say much about the things I'm saying. Um, but that's not always the case. If I say something to you that you think is wrong and it's not related to T and Doe, I want to know about it. And but some people could take that and say, oh well, I guess I can just. My screen just went blank. Oh, what? That was weird. My screen went blank on the live stream, and I didn't do anything to change it. For maybe now it shows me when I was eating. I haven't been eating for a long time. All right, weird. Maybe it's replaying.
No, it's not. You're live right now.
Well, look at the
There are a
way.
lot of things going on in the chat if you
All
want
right,
to.
all right.
And then it looks like maybe your Bible software is crashed. Or not that, but your note software crashed is
Oh,
not showing
maybe.
on the screen.
Oh, maybe it's a problem. Okay.
But you've been on for 2 hours or so
Yeah,
now.
I'm gonna bring it to a
Gonna,
close. let me see what else they're saying and just catch up with that, okay?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just, maybe read the comments.
Yeah, thank you. So RVW says, I'm noticing a lot of similarities between Musk's cult and Heaven's Gate. My prediction is that Elon Musk will use his resources to create a new utopian society outside of the US. I don't know what the same thing is about Elon Musk and Heaven's Gate. If you want to give me some specifics, I'm probably not going to stay around very much longer on the stream to hear them. But if you want to leave a comment and mention it, I'd certainly like to hear what you have to say. Uh, um, Utopian society outside the U.S. underground. Underground, yeah, I don't doubt that he's doing things underground. But he's got the Boring Company, right? I know that humans have been doing a lot of that for a long time. Uh, but Elon Musk has promised to move his group his to Mars if World War III happens. Yeah, well, I can understand that they want to do that. I don't think that that's a fabrication necessarily. I haven't heard Elon Musk actually say that, so I'm not gonna claim that that's a correct quote, but I don't doubt it. And the whole idea of if World War III happens, he's not the only one preparing for different scenarios, whether it's nuclear Armageddon or whatever it is, or some space alien attack. That they think of the next level in general. I'm not saying specifically because I don't know, but in general, the ways of thinking about the next level are as if they are another group of space aliens, and that um, and that's where the more accurate understanding of space aliens comes in, of that that they've been here before this current civilization even for many civilizations there could have been individuals that are considered to be the fallen angel souls or the Luciferians. A limited number of souls, not a lot necessarily. I mean, even numbers like, let's say, even 24, if that's the number, um, could be the number of how many souls were working in a very elementary capacity with primitive spacecrafts, but under the next level's uh, guidance. They could have been in that situation. There could only be 24 of them that decided to go with the one that was called Lucifer in order to uh, basically build their own kingdom. Do what humans say that some humans say that they created, the humans, when in a sense they did by artificial insemination or by relating, being able to relate because they went through a reverse metamorphosis themselves, were able to you know mate with humans on the planet during a civilization, maybe even the beginning of this one. I don't know if that was depicting the end of the last one with the flood, even though in the order of the Bible it looks like it was happening during this current civilization. I don't know if that's exactly true, but it doesn't matter if it is or not. The next level does uh, bring about recycling in different ways and different degrees of recycling. They don't have to recycle everything all at once. And they do recycle spirits and souls can actually be the next level can create souls and they can destroy souls, but the space aliens don't know how to create souls or destroy souls, so they try to steal souls from what the next level has been growing. And that doesn't mean that they're growing us to be robots. There are no robots in the next level. I mean, they can have robotic. operating tasks. I mean that they develop machines to do, but members of the next level, to go in an area that the vehicles would perish by going by. Like I was thinking that that might have to do with like, let's say they decide to send something to the sun. Maybe a next level vehicle that's grown on a vine like a plant, but is sophisticated with all kinds of skills of changing its vibrations to be invisible to humans and things like that. Maybe that vehicle wouldn't survive being too close to the sun. So they would use a different device for that. But those vehicles that they have, the space alien souls only had a very elementary version of that, a strata. That's the way Junodi talked about it in the Away Team from Deep Space Services Before Departure document. So, uh, XF says, have a good night. XF says, I don't think it's a question of if World War III happens, but when. My take on that anyway. I think, yeah, I don't have any doubt that that is been happening. It's, whatever you want, a number you want to put on it, I don't think really matters. But to have a bunch of countries fighting against each other, uh, uh, it's, with World War One and World War Two, you had different axes of powers fighting against each other. And then there were all kinds of people that were aligned with those different axes of power. Whether it was with the Soviet Union and uh, or China or Japan or Germany, of course, and things like that. So you know, uh, we're in a global environment more and more. So anybody that's sitting back and thinking, I'm waiting for World War III to happen before I'm going to do this and do that. Well, I don't know, what that means exactly. But if you're in a place that's war torn, I think the time to leave is obvious. As soon as you can. If you can't, then make the best of it. Okay, but if you can, then I think that like people that got out of Germany and during those times. So anyway, I think the U.S. should seed out human civilization somewhere else. This is from RVW to be able to bring humans back if nuclear war breaks out. Well, yeah, the next level knows how to do that. Uh, that's not like that. I'm not gonna say it doesn't require a bunch of effort and time for them to do it, but the reason why there's a mineral kingdom and there's a plant kingdom and there's an animal kingdom and there's a human kingdom is because the next level has been growing human plants for we don't probably know how to count that many time frames, because years only means something to us. It doesn't mean the same thing to, who knows, maybe nobody else has the same cycle, on the different planets that exist. Anyway, so yeah, you're picking up on I think those are truthful statements that, well, you're saying that the U.S. should seed out human civilization somewhere. Well, yeah, where? On Mars, I guess, right? That's what humans want to do, and that's why they want to gather as much sperm and eggs that they can, and perfect their test tube babies, and so they can continue to grow the civilization in their own environments, whatever they are, on a spacecraft or in a lab or underground or wherever they can survive. They're doing it. They're trying to do it. and preparing for it. And they still also want to control what's happening on the surface of the earth because that's what pays everybody, you know. And because unless they're a very small environment planning to leave this planet and travel to Mars and set up a colony like Bush talked about the United States was going to do with a colony on the moon and Mars before he left office. And the Chinese before that said that they were going to do that. So uh, you can see all the signs of it that are obvious, and the reasons why they want to go out into space. Like even was talked about in many science fiction movies, like Close Encounters, and not in Close Encounters so much, but uh, the one by 2001: Space Odyssey, and then the sequel to it. Right? Anyway, making a new sun out of Jupiter or something like that. Anyway, the Jupiter effect. Anyway, I'm going to move on because
Are you
it's time
ready
for
to?
me to go to bed.
Yeah.
So good night, folks.